All right, we're back at Boise Entrepreneurship Week Live. My name is Eric Gilbert. I'm with Duck Club Entertainment, Treefort Music Fest here in Boise, Idaho. And I'm excited to have a little conversation around the cultural economy with my good friends and colleagues, Dayo Ayodele. Oh my gosh, I was gonna go for it. I tried.
Ayodele, Ayodele.
Thank you, Dayo. And Amanda Ashley from Boise State. And Amanda's going to help us get started by what is a cultural economy, or how do the academics think of it?
In the most confusing way possible. Yeah. No, just kidding. So I would say, like, just generally, depending upon who you ask, the cultural economy is going to mean different things to different people. But like in the research that we do, we tend to think about it in a variety of different kinds of buckets. So like one bucket, and it's the bucket that people most commonly think of, is when we're talking about the economy and we're talking about entrepreneurship, is like focusing on the connection to tourism. And tourism is one bucket that we tend to think about. But it's the other buckets that have been relatively hidden, that are deeply important to how we think about the economy, and have shifted over time. And so we tend to think about the artists as creators, developers, innovators, entrepreneur in their own right? That it's not just about that they bring tourism, it's that they have this kind of creative engine in their brain, and how they express it is actually really good for our communities and also really good for our economy. And we never tended to think about that before. We only ever tended to think about another kind of bucket, which is just thinking about industries, like the creative industries. And we often only thought about them from like nonprofits. We never thought about them in terms of all of the incredible, both small to large businesses, when we think about the industries. And it's not just about the performing arts that are important, but it's also about film and music and food and all sorts of other things that are at the heart of what we do. And then one of the other kinds of buckets that we think about are the ways in which, when you walk down the street and you can see it, you can taste it, you can hear it, and it creates really interesting places to live that both attract the kinds of workers that are important to our economy, but also elevates and honors and respects the people that have been here forever, and how we do that. And so when we think about the economy, we think about everything from nonprofits to for-profit to civic activity, and we think about everything from like traditional performing arts to some of the newer areas that we normally didn't talk about before, like music and film.
Yeah, great. I love that. And we're here at Boise Entrepreneurship Week, and I think a lot of people don't think of the cultural side of our economy as entrepreneurial, right? But I think if you start a band, that's like starting a small business. But Dayo, I'm curious. So you founded and lead a nonprofit called Global Lounge.
That's right. Yeah.
But you've kind of functioned as an entrepreneur to get that off the ground.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the origin story and what your work is?
Yeah. Well, what we do mostly is pretty much we preserve culture. And how do we do that? We also use it as an education tool, and also the third thing is sharing with the community. But it's kind of morphed into a lot of things, because what Global Lounge does, apart from doing the music and art, we've actually ventured into what I would call, I guess, I'll say creative economy as well, because now we have what we call West Bench Farmers Market, where we have a lot of the, new Americans there, like people from other places, to gather, and also serve as a business incubator as well for these people. And then when you come to that space, you will see everyone from people selling windows, and then selling clothes, selling produce, selling all kinds of different things. So, I think, being that what you say is like there's that economic factor as well that we do. And then we also do the World Village, which you helped us most of the time, and that's bringing the community together. And what does that have? Food, which is very important in culture. So people, pretty much cater. They have food, and they also have all the arts and craft to sell, apart from the, what the performers do. Yeah.
When did you start Global Lounge?
Global Lounge was actually founded in 2006, and it's pretty much, it came out of, what I at that time saw as an opportunity for the community, because my daughter is biracial. We got here, it was a little hard at the beginning, and we just felt that, we needed to educate the community and bring them together. And you were one of the people I actually came to say, can you help me? Let's make this thing happen. And since then, it's been really great. So that's how it started, yes.
Yeah. Seems like you've built out some, like a third place or a home for a lot of people in this community, for a lot of new Americans. But I think you bring a lot of people that want to support those cultures. Right?
Exactly, yeah, because I think a place is very important.
Yeah.
When we're even talking about culture, which is in the arts world, it's called placemaking, which is what we have on Houston and Cole, pretty much like a culture hub for everyone. So we do performances there. And people also use it as a place to practice, to preserve their culture. So we have the Chinese, the Mexican, the Bosnian community. There's a lot of different communities that come to the space to use it to kind of just also keep their culture. And again, the other good thing about it is like it makes our city a livable place, because you have all these expats now that came from other countries working for different companies here. So they have a place to congregate or come together and do things with the host community as well.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that I love about what you just said is like how you're talking about these like different places, and the connection to both community and economic development. And the cultural planner for the city of Boise, Tilly Bubb, would often say to me, can you imagine, because sometimes like people don't know like where to find arts and culture, even though we all know that it's all around us, and we know it's a hidden economy, we know it's a hidden in hidden places and all sorts of other things. But she's like, can you imagine if you just put a blanket over all the arts and cultural places in all of our neighborhoods and in downtown, like it would be so clear, like the impact that these places have. And I think about how what you have done, like in that neighborhood, and how much I love that farmers market and coming to it for so many different kinds of reasons. I think about you, Eric, and the different teams that you're on that have remade downtown, like through music and also in support of a variety of other arts and cultural organizations. And I know I can't even begin to understand the kind of like effort that goes into that entrepreneurial activity, and it's elemental to like who we are as a city.
I think a lot of the cultural economy work seems to land in like creating and preserving space, and a lot of it starts in temporary spaces, right? Like I think of Treefort and festivals in general. You were in temporary spaces for a long time, almost like food trucks too, like food too, It's like we create these temporary spaces and kind of like proof of concept. And so those that don't know the work that we do, we now have two venues that we run, Shrine Social Club and Treefort Music Hall and Hap. And now it's a different perspective when you're now like, when you have space, like how you make sure to incorporate the community in that, because access to space is super important. I think that's too. You now have a brick and mortar opportunity to really build out that like work. But it's hard. That's one of the things. It's hard in a growing city for work like this that tends to operate at lower, tighter margins to win the battle for space, right? So that's where like being, interdependent on the public sector as well as the private sector to see the value in preserving that space, right?
For sure.
I'm sure you in your work a lot, like without space, like, or at least the ability to pop up a festival or the funding to be able to do it.
No, place is very important because people identify with it. They associate, they see it as a place where they can go. I mean, for a long time before we even got the space, it was hard for us because people always ask, where can we find you? Where you guys at? Those kind of things. But since we have that space, it's been pretty, it's just an eye-opener for me, especially, like, wow, how much that's very valuable to our city, because, again, flowing into the farmers market as well, throwing that in. So I think, culture is very, very important, I think, and because, even coming to even back to what you mentioned about bands and things like that, what Treefort and Duck Club has done, I think it's been really amazing because you've actually made a lot of people stay in this city because I know when it used to be like you form a band and people they just move to Seattle or move to Portland because they don't see anything for them here, but being that you guys are, this, Treefort, Duck Club, you've actually kind of changed that dynamics a little bit, that people are like, wow, this is actually a cool place to stay and live, you know. So I think, you know, I mean, none of this is, you know, I mean, lost anything. It just needs, I think it needs to be encouraged and invested in. Yeah. That's my thought.
One of the things I love, and you're a good example of this, and we talk about this a lot, like, let's use musicians as the art form.
Yeah.
A lot of them also do other things, you know? Like you have a great band called Afrosonics, but you also run a really important organization for others. Last night at the opening party for this, I was talking to someone in tech who is also a bass player, and it's important to them that they live in a town where they can also play
and do music,
play in a band. Yeah. Like the like hobbyist level of the culture economy is super important too, right? So
for sure.
Yeah, and like I think, you know, one of the most important steps, and of course I'm going to say this because like I'm a researcher, is that like we actually understand like the infrastructure that we currently have, that we understand. Like, you know, what are the hobbyists? What are the people that are actually trying to make a career of this? Like, how are they translating their incredible creative skills into other both arts and non-arts industry? Like, what do we have here, and what don't we have here, and what should we have here? Like, I think that there is like this strong sense that the arts are important, but they are not just an amenity, right? They're elemental, and that we have to be able to understand why that is and to help be able to articulate that story, whether it's about preserving cultures, celebrating cultures, whether that's about helping encourage like industries and small businesses that are here, but we need to figure out how to support them in the same way we do with other kinds of entrepreneurial activities. And it's not just because the arts are nice, it's because like if you just look globally, nationally at the state, like it is an incredibly important set of economic generators.
I think infrastructure is such an interesting conversation that doesn't get framed like that very often, but if you think of the places that we have, we built those out of almost sheer will, obviously a community around it that would help, but the public sector doesn't naturally think of how to build infrastructure for the creative economy as much as they might think of agriculture or other things. And so I think that's been a cool part of the evolution of the conversation here in Boise, because I think it's better understanding of that.
And like good partners in that space that are like willing to be open and to like, you know, and not pretend to know everything, right? Like everybody has like a kind of curiosity to try to learn more about that, and I know it's something I appreciate.
Which research helps a lot, so appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you.
There's one thing in the creative economy, you know, those in the music world, you know, we just tend to just pummel ahead and do what we want to do and don't spend a lot of time understanding it.
Well, and then look what happened. All sorts of amazing things. You know, getting to sit with both of you is, I'm constantly reminded of all the awesome stuff that you and your teams have done.
Well, we're about to wrap. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, I just, you know, I guess my pitch or my, you know, message is that hopefully, you know, investors or the private community can see art as important as any other tool thing, because I feel that, you know, even, you know, if you talk agriculture or any other thing, you always think creatively before you go implement what you want to do. So I think support for that is always a good thing.
So access to infrastructure and capital.
Exactly, thank you, yes indeed.
Noted.
And like continuing to like invest in the relationships and partnerships that we have, and being open to like new places that we might find collaborators that we didn't have before, because it does take a wide variety of people in different kinds of positions with different kinds of passions and expertise to be able to build it even more so.
Such a pleasure being in community with both of you, and thanks for being part of the conversation today.